I watch episode 21 of Pokemon every year because I watch every episode of Pokemon every year. In episode 21, Bye Bye Butterfree, Bugs Find Love. Ash and friends reach the Butterfree mating grounds, where Brock tells Ash that if Butterfree isn't allowed to mate this year, then it never will. Ash and friends enter amorous airspace aboard a conveniently available hot air balloon from the Butterfree mating grounds to the Butterfree mating skies. Misty, who is patently prejudiced against bug-type Pokemon, also pushes Ash towards abandonment. Ash's Butterfree aims high and approaches the only distinct Butterfree, and attempts courtship through song and dance. But Pink Butterfree isn't down with this clown. Ash's Butterfree puts the bland in blandishment. It swoons without swag. It's razzle-rizzless. Ash's Butterfree has a low pollen count. The Pink Butterfree's obvious disinterest is continually ignored, and it has to resort to violence in order for its feelings to be acknowledged. When you shoot your shot at a wall, it ricochets. Rejected, Ash's Butterfree flees to the forest, moping from behind a tree. Everyone's always gotta be near trees when they're sad. Ash and friends offer a slight makeover, a used washcloth, making Butterfree distinguishable and distinguished. With the newfound confidence of individuality, it attempts to impress again with its athletic ability, but it's still fighting above its weight class. With its advances again unmet, the rogues make their entrance. Without their appearance in this episode, the central conflict would have just been the concept of consent. They arrive in a helicopter with a banner that didn't need to be that long or exist at all. Between the burglary of Butterfree, they make a few solid puns, whilst Ash's Butterfree tries to take down the rotorcraft by physical force but fails because it's a single insect. Ash tries to add aid with his Pidgeotto, but is stopped by Misty, who values Butterfree's ego more than the freedom of hundreds of Pokemon. Butterfree fails, as it always does, and the evildoers take their spoils to a warehouse hidden away in this national park. Ash and friends then show up at their place of work unannounced, stealing their catchphrases. As Misty Starmie fights off 3 attackers alone, Ash's Butterfree strains in its battle against a wicker basket. Another emotional attachment is cemented during their most vulnerable state. Another bond by trauma. The Pink Butterfree settles for Ash's Butterfree, the beginning of their relationship marred by suffering. Pikachu attacks their enemies in retreat, and their Black Hawk goes down. The final conflict of the episode back to the inalienable rights of the individual. In the games, releasing Pokemon is always just a couple button presses away, and there's the certainty that they will never be seen again. But bye-bye is a simple, permanent, and harsher pain, but with a greater assurance of closure. Ash doesn't allow Butterfree to say bye-bye to any of the other Pokemon, instead offering to lie about Butterfree's whereabouts, giving them false hope of its return. As they fly off together, there's a minute-long montage of old reused footage. Another cost-cutting animation technique that doesn't make me cry every time that I watch this, or several times whilst I was editing this. Notably absent from the memoriam is the time that Ash easily traded away Butterfree before. He didn't cry that time. This isn't Butterfree's first bye-bye. Overcoming his disorganized attachment style, Ash releases the first Pokemon he ever caught, the first and second and only Pokemon that has evolved under his care. Brock and Misty shed no tears. Misty was happy to see Butterfree gone last time as well. They both know that Butterfree is better off without them. Butterfree is one of the few Pokemon that plainly pleads for liberty each time it specifically cries out the second part of its name. Who's that Pokemon? Who was that Pokemon? As Butterfree flies off to free its butter, Ash says a final bye-bye, not knowing if their shared story would ever be continued. But it was. 26 years later, Ash's Butterfree appears again. A cameo in the end credits of episode 1220. It was one of the last storylines to ever reach closure. During their 4 decades apart, Butterfree was frequently featured through flashbacks and fantasies. Unsure of the future, Ash held on to the past until they were finally reunited, and he could let go of that too. Sometimes the hardest part of letting someone go is letting yourself keep going. Rest in peace to several voices of my childhood.